In 1950 on the streets of America, it was easy to spot a neat, gleaming sedan under the morning sun, the Chevrolet Styleline Deluxe. For many, it was more than just a car. It was a sign that life itself was changing. America entered a time of wealth after World War II. Young families were searching for a reliable vehicle to take them to work, school, and Sunday drives. Chevrolet met that need with the Styleline Deluxe, a name that quickly became known to millions. What made this car special wasn't glamour or speed, but the way it became intertwined with the memories of an entire generation. Today we'll travel back in time to revisit the car that accompanied Americans through the early years of the 1950s and uncover why it is still remembered to this day. By 1950, the American car market had become a playground unlike anything seen before. The economy was doing well, wages were going up, and the middle class was getting bigger after years of war. Families wanted their own cars, not just for getting to work, but also for going on weekend trips together. Car makers knew this well. Ford offered the Custom Deluxe, while Plymouth introduced affordable yet practical models. The competition to win over customers became very fierce. Ford often highlighted its powerful V8 engines, while Plymouth attracted buyers with lower prices and approachable styling. In this climate, Americans didn't just want a car that could move them from point A to point B. They wanted something that would last, work well, and look nice. Something to show off to the neighbors without breaking the bank. This was the gap Chevrolet identified. As part of General Motors, they knew that if they could create a car that was both practical and stylish, they could secure their position as America's #1 automaker. Chevrolet started to change in 1949 by introducing the Styleline, which slowly replaced the older Fleet line models that still looked like they were from the 1940s. There were two trims for the Styleline, Special and Deluxe. The Special targeted budget-conscious buyers, while the Deluxe represented a step up for those who wanted practicality combined with a touch of sophistication. The outside design showed off that little bit of class the most. The polished chrome on the front grille shone, and the horizontal bars made a friendly smile. The car had a sturdy and friendly look thanks to the twin round headlights that sat neatly on slightly bulged fenders. I still remember seeing a light blue Deluxe at a car show. The way sunlight bounced off its chrome made it feel as though it had just rolled out of 1950. A sight that will stay with you forever. The Deluxe had no seams in its body. Its soft curves flow smoothly from the hood to the trunk. Not as flashy as a Cadillac, or as plain as a Plymouth. Chevrolet found a middle ground, and that balance made families think it was just right. Not too flashy, but never boring. The back of the car was small, with small tail lights surrounded by thin chrome. Even though the big tail fins that came later weren't there yet, the Deluxe still had a dignified charm that middle-class people liked. Some people chose the convertible version, which made summer drives into memories that would last a lifetime. The top was down, the wind was blowing in, and the kids were laughing in the back seat as the car drove through quiet suburban streets. Chevrolet also had a lot of different body styles to choose from. Two-door sedan, four-door sedan, coupe, and convertible, each made for a different way of life. The Styleline Deluxe appealed to so many people because it could do so many things. The outside was the attractive shell, but the real reason you want to stay attached is what's inside. The seats were covered in thick fabric with strong stitching, not as fancy as a Cadillac, but warm and comforting. I remember the first time I sat in a Styleline Deluxe at a classic car show. It felt like I was going back in time. The smell of old fabric mixed with metal and a faint woodsy smell from the dashboard made me think of my grandparents' living room. Simple, but very familiar. There was a big round speedometer right in front of the driver on the dashboard which shone with chrome. The knobs and switches were easy to see and use. It might look simple now, but in 1950 that was a sign of style. Chevrolet also offered extra features like an AM radio, an electric clock, or a heater. Extras that not every family could afford, but that made a huge difference when they were there. I love how the inside of the Deluxe makes me feel welcome and cared for. It wasn't far away like the expensive luxury cars, but it also didn't feel cheap. When you put your hands on the thin two-spoke steering wheel, you realize you're holding a piece of history. Something that helped millions of American families plan their first trips in the 1950s. And after you've looked around the cabin, the next question is, what kind of driving experience does the engine under the hood give? The Stovebolt 6 engine is one of the most common engines of the time, and you can see it when you open the hood of the Styleline Deluxe. Displacing 216.5C and making about 92 horsepower. Because the bolts looked like the ones used in old wood stoves, it was given the name Stovebolt. But don't be fooled by the simple name. This was the engine that made Chevrolet known for being tough for decades. The Stovebolt 6 was strong because it was simple. It was easy to take care of because it had a simple valve and block design and an easy-to-reach layout. Mechanics, and even dads with a set of wrenches, could do it with little trouble. I heard a collector say that his Deluxe car went over 100,000 miles with just regular oil changes and basic maintenance. A very impressive number for the 1950s. The standard transmission was a 3-speed manual with the lever on the steering column, which is what most people know as 3 on the tree. For a lot of young drivers, learning to drive meant getting good at this motion. Chevrolet also sold the new Powerglide Automatic, which came out in 1950. This was a big deal because it was the first time you could get a mid-priced Chevrolet that drove smoothly without a clutch. Of course, it cost more, but for a lot of families, it became a sign of how easy life is now. So how did this engine and transmission work on the road? Don't expect Ford's flathead Fig 8 to be very punchy. The Styleline Deluxe was set up to be smooth and calm. It drove quietly on straight highways without roaring or jerking. The independent front suspension and rear leaf springs made for a smooth ride on America's busy highways. I once rode in the front seat of a Deluxe, and what struck me the most was how peaceful it was. The body dipped gently over small potholes and quickly regained its balance, making it feel more like a sturdy boat than a car. It was common for cars of this time to have a thin, 2-spoke steering wheel that was big in diameter and didn't have power assist. Drivers had to put in a lot of effort at low speeds, especially when parking or making sharp turns. But this little thing showed something interesting. In 1950, easy to drive didn't mean easy to use. It meant being in charge of everything. Not everyone liked the experience, but it showed how different a 1950s family sedan is from today's cars full of electronics. Back then, many drivers liked that they had to use their muscles to steer, a reminder that they were really in charge of a strong steel machine. The Styleline Deluxe was the best family car for everyday use. It didn't win races, but it did win over fans. It was always reliable, whether I was going to the store in town or across the state. Many families packed it full of luggage, kids, and even the family dog, and drove hundreds of miles without worrying about getting stuck. The Styleline Deluxe became a bestseller because it was so reliable, which helped Chevrolet break sales records in 1950. That year, Chevrolet sold more than 1.5 million cars, with the Styleline Deluxe making up a large part of those sales. It wasn't the fastest or most flashy car, but it was just right. Affordable, long-lasting, and stylish enough to make owners proud when parked in the driveway. Ford's V8 engine was its best feature. Plymouth tried to win by offering low prices, but Chevrolet wisely took the middle road, which is why they won. It's amazing that sales were more than just numbers. They stood for emotional ties. The Styleline Deluxe was the first car for many families. It was linked to road trips, childhood memories, and even milestones of moving up in the world. The press of the time called it the car for every family, which helped Chevrolet's image as the brand that best represented middle-class America. Its rounded roofline and shiny chrome trim became common sights on quiet streets and in suburban driveways. In family photos from that time, the Deluxe was often in the background, like a quiet but lasting family member. Movies that showed everyday life after the war also showed its presence in film and media. The Styleline Deluxe was often parked along the curb, taking people to work or families to picnics. It wasn't seen as a sign of speed or wealth, but as a sign of stability, simplicity, and the American dream that anyone can achieve. Many veterans who came back from Europe or the Pacific chose the Deluxe as their first car. It was a small reward for themselves and their families, and a sign that they were moving on to peace. The Styleline Deluxe became more than just a regular car over time. It became a symbol of a time when American cars began to represent wealth and hope. That's exactly why classic car fans are willing to pay so much more for it now. Sedans are still pretty easy to find, but coups, and especially convertibles, are getting harder to find. You can still get a nice sedan for a reasonable price, which is great for people who want to own a piece of America without spending a lot of money. But a well-kept two-door coupe or convertible can sell for a lot more, sometimes more than $40,000 at auction. I remember going to a vintage car show where they showed off a fully restored Deluxe convertible. The crowd seemed to stop for a few seconds when the sun hit the cream paint and chrome trim. Not because it was the most expensive car there, but because it took everyone back to a time in America 70 years ago, when happiness was as simple as lowering the top and singing with the family on a long drive. The Styleline Deluxe is one of a kind today. It is a cultural icon that brings back memories and is also a valuable collectible. For a lot of people, owning one isn't just about showing it off. It's about keeping memories alive and telling the story of a hopeful America where every family thought the future would be better. The Styleline Deluxe is a real treasure in the classic car world because it has both material value and emotional value. But do you think it was its simple design and long-lasting quality that made it part of America's memory? If you like stories about old cars, click the like button to help the channel. Don't forget to sign up so you don't miss the next in-depth look at other famous cars. Have you ever seen or even driven a Styleline Deluxe? Tell us your story in the comments. I think that every memory adds to the value of this community. Please share this video with other fans if you want to see more stories like this. This channel can grow and make even more exciting content thanks to your support. And thanks to your support. And thanks